Hello everyone, and welcome back to Bloodbourne Reborn, and another extra episode, where we are deep in the Chalice dungeons, and I'm doing some post-commentary. Now, if you look up at the top left there, you will see, or not see, an awful lot of health has been deleted from my already very short health pool, because we're in the Defiled Chalice today. And, yeah, even though these are not unique bosses in any way, they are a very unique situation to find oneself in at level 4. So I decided to keep them and put them in. So up first is the Keeper of the Old Lords, and I'm pretty certain the only thing I can do is just parry her and hit her a lot and not get hit by anything. Although surprisingly, I think I can tank one very brief hit from the flames. Although if she touches me with her sword, I am out. Also, although I said I'm going to visceral her to death, what I'm actually doing is countering her attack and then hitting her with the overhead from the axe, because it actually does more damage. And the axe gives you more damage in one hit than the cleaver does, but it also staggers her a little bit more than the cleaver would consistently, so you don't have to deal with a very sudden animation reset from her, which sometimes happens if you try and double hit her with a cleaver. She'll immediately go into a sword swing when you're right in front of her, and you'll die. And that sucks. So get out the bone marrow ash for some extra damage. And just keep it up until she dies. There's really not a lot more to it than that. Yeah, actually I think I do poison her sometimes in this fight. I just realized I have the poison knives out and I'm actually throwing them. You can poison her, but you won't be able to kill her that way. It's very good for these times when she's just stalling by throwing flame waves, because there's not a lot you can do unless you're very good at dodging through them. And I'm both not that good at it, and also I can't afford to be hit by even a single one of them. So, as you can see, I can get hit by that once, but then I have to triple vial myself up to full health. So that's not good. Yeah, this is all I can do. Just back around all over the place. Doop. Zoop. Zoop. Yep. I can parry other attacks of hers, but none of them are as consistent and risk-free as this one. Although I say risk-free, if I actually miss that parry, I'll die immediately. I seem to recall that happening a few times while fighting this boss at various layers of the dungeon. Since unfortunately she's a very common boss to show up. I don't even know if I should be calling her a she, because I don't actually have any proof that it's a woman. It's just that the witch's hat gives off that kind of vibe. But yeah, over the course of this playthrough, I've fought this particular boss more times than I wish to count. And the problem with fighting her at relatively high level dungeons is that she takes quite a while to beat using this method. You can be killed in almost one hit, so you can't take some risks to speed it up. And she drops garbage blood gems. I don't even think you know, skill-based builds would use sharp blood gems that much, but that's all she drops, as far as I know. And they're terrible. So you really feel like you're wasting your time against this boss when you fight her. At least I do. This is one of those bosses where if you had a Blood Tinge or an Arcane build, you could probably destroy her quite easily and quite quickly. But for everyone else, just gotta pay away. Oh, I'm yawning because this fight is kind of boring, isn't it? I was so proud of myself when I did it though, because I got into the zone. Oh well, I'll see you again at the next boss, because we'll be moving on to the Watchdog of the Old Lords. I think this guy did actually beat me at least once, but I must say, a lot of people find this boss incredibly difficult, but I do not. Especially with an axe. Because the reach on the axe in this situation is just really good. Although I must admit, this particular encounter, where I'm playing as a level 4 build, and this is obviously a depth 4 dungeon, not being hit by the boss during an entire fight isn't that hard, but this is a very spongy version of it. It's going to take a lot of hits. My method of fighting the Watchdog, I feel, is very safe. A lot of videos I see of other people fighting this, they take a lot more risks by going for the legs, which is something I'm not very comfortable doing. But I never really felt the need to change what I was doing because it was so consistently working for me. That's about the only dangerous move that he does, and it's pretty easy to see once you realize what the telegraph for it is. Admittedly, it took me a while on my first playthrough to actually see through it, even though it's blindingly obvious now. I just never realized his little flare-up that he does was the beginning of a charge move until pretty late in the game. Now this looks like it's going to take a very long time, and it probably will, but the trick is to break the armor on his head, obviously. So once you do that, you can get in a couple of hits where you do like triple or quadruple damage compared to what I'm doing now. What am I doing now? So it's like 100 and something at best, I think? Yeah, about 150. See what I do when I actually crack the shell on his head. Shouldn't be too longer. Sometimes you get in these awkward patterns where you can't do much. I think I can get hit by that flame wave attack that he does with his front paw once. Similar to the Watchdog of the Old Lords. It seems to be a percentage-based sort of affair where... Okay, 200... 700... Yeah, see, that's a lot. I thought I might have been going a bit far with quadruple damage, but I don't think I am, actually. There's 150 times 4 is, what, 600? So if I'm doing between 5 and 700 type of damage, then that's not entirely wrong. Seems like a regular hit is just 500 there. It's not quite quadruple, but a strong hit is a bit more than that. But yeah, if you're ever having trouble with the Watchdog of the Old Lords, this is just how I do it. Although I'm not normally using an axe during a regular playthrough, which makes it a little trickier. Some people like the, what would you call it, I'm blanking on its name for a second. Well, the whip. The threaded cane, that's it. I got it, eventually. The thing I always hated about the threaded cane is that the strong attack, at least I think it's just, yeah, the strong whip attack, which you're tempted to use because of its range, tends to lock you in an animation you can't really get out of. And sometimes a quick attack will just strike you down. I never got used to it. Everyone likes to go on about Threaded Cane's range, but for some reason I feel like the extended axe is pretty much the same range. About the only disadvantage with the axe is you can't use a gun at the same time. But what the hey? And there are other weapons that basically have decent range too anyway. The transformed Armadillo arm has a similar sort of animation problem, but it's probably just as long. And it would probably work pretty well against this guy since it does arcane damage as a basic. Just the blood gems for it would suck though. You'd have to get nourishing, I think. Or very flat arcane. Yeah. Chunking them down once you get used to it. Throw in a couple of strong attacks, or actually they're not strong attacks. They're L2 attacks, I think. They're faster than the strong attack, but they have that nice sweep. You should definitely get used to it if you're using an axe, because it's good to have a sweep that goes both clockwise and anti-clockwise, essentially. You can do that with one button press with no delay. Get out of there. And then he repairs his head and we have to break it again. Sucks to be me. That attack where he barks fire at you, I pretty much got used to how I could strong attack after it with the axe, but with any other weapon I've never actually been able to do it very well. Which is another reason I like the axe. I really should get a second attack in there, but I don't. You can imagine the tension I'm feeling not wanting to get hit by anything during this fight. And having it take quite a while. Because at this point in the game, I'm not entirely certain I will be able to get through the Defiled dungeon in the first place. So every little roadblock I come across like this, I'm pretty much on the edge of my seat the whole way through. Anyway, there's not a lot to say about this. I will eventually get through it, but I think I've talked myself out for this one, so I will rejoin you again at the start of the next fight, which will hopefully be the Defiled Amygdala. See you then. everyone, and welcome to the Defiled Amygdala boss fight. My video had a few failed attempts on it, and I had to edit it very quickly. But I think we're okay now. This should be the winning fight, unless I'm grossly mistaken. But I don't think I am. But yeah, I was sweating this one. Although, in reality, I don't think it took me that many attempts. It's just, I had a lot of bad memories about fighting this one in the Defiled dungeon. And that was with a regular build. Although I must say, one of the good things about a Blood level 4 build in the Defiled dungeon is that it doesn't feel that much harder than it would have been normally anyway, since a lot of these attacks would one-shot you at a much higher level than 4, for sure. I've done this at level 30 before, for instance, so pretty much if you can do this at level 30, you could do it at level 1, if that wasn't even an option. It just takes maybe slightly longer to do the damage, but everything else about it is pretty much the same. I don't know if I get through this entire fight without getting hit at all. I can't think of any attacks that he does that I would be able to survive a hit from. I mean, if I get hit by those the hands, for sure. The lasers, for sure. The stomp attack, for sure, maybe. Actually, maybe there's one, that might be the one attack I can't survive. It might be possible to be hit with a foot. Once. Or at least the shockwave from the foot, without dying. Because I feel like it's one of those attacks that calculates how much health you actually have and subtracts an adjusted portion of it. Which means if you got really high health, it'll do more damage than it would when you're at low health. But it'll come pretty close to killing a low health character, whereas it'll probably just take a chunk off a high health character. It's a very weird system when you got these sort of adjusted percentage-based attacks. They initially sound unfair, but when you actually do it in practice, it just means that high health characters can take a fixed number of hits more than a low health character. Whereas a low health character won't die in one hit, but can never take more than one hit. So yeah, it's a weird thing to experience when you're actually playing the game like this. You expect that a lot of these attacks would, especially for like really late game bosses, like say Ludwig and the Orphan of Cause, you would expect that you wouldn't be able to take even a single hit from any of their attacks, but in reality you can. It just depends which one it is. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of their attacks will kill you in one hit, but you'll be surprised occasionally when you don't. Unfortunately, Defiled Amygdala, pretty much all the frontal attacks will kill you. So you pretty much have to dodge everything until at least until you get to phase 3 and you can start exploiting your silly jump AI. But even then, you have to watch out for the stomps, because they're easy to get caught up in. It's also one of those situations where you have to be pretty good at controlling the camera without locking onto anything. That was a pretty gutsy strike attack from me. I wouldn't normally try that kind of thing. I guess I was trying for extra damage versus the visceral. Because my viscerals at this point suck. Ah. And I'm using Bone Marrow Ash to try and speed through the second phase by shooting her in the head when I don't have a chance to counterattack. Well, it does work, especially if her head actually has like a break in the armor like it did there. I think my only strategy here is just to run around until she does something ill-advised. Because the problem is I don't want to get caught up in any of those magical orb things. Yeah, unlock the camera and just sort of go for it, I guess. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to get like pinned between her and a wall. Attacks like that could easily end my attempt though, because it's pretty hard to judge the distance sometimes. Which I guess is why I'm trying to judge their orientation instead. By making sure I'm not directly in front of her whichever she starts one. Because she won't pivot on the spot while she's doing it. So if you're to the side of her, you're pretty safe. Tactics. We'll pretend it's tactics. That's how I'm going to look at it. Is it like 1/3 health when she rips off her arms, or is it something a bit higher than that? I can never remember. Yeah, just running side to side also pretty much means the lasers are no issue at all either. Oh, that's going to be close. I think my backside was burning by that one. This fight isn't meant to take this long. It's because of my low damage that you can't really rush it. You end up having to endure quite a bit. What were you doing there? That kind of attack isn't going to help. If she'd done a big overhead attack there, I probably wouldn't have been able to get away from it. There wasn't enough space between me and the wall, or her and the wall, for me to do anything but run directly sideways. So if she'd done that, I would have been hit, for sure. Sometimes you just got to deal with the randomness. One of the things I used to do is I used to be too eager, and I would run towards the attack, hoping to hit the arms, and actually run into the magical ball myself. And that would kill me. Fond memories. Slash slash, and here we go. And then you run directly towards it with all your might. That attack is now the primary antagonist for the rest of the fight. Just trying to stay away from the legs. Can't believe I staggered her from the tip of her tail. That's hilarious. Now with a bit of practice you can get a good feel for where she comes down and then hit her in the head like that. The only problem with that is it leaves you open to a stop as you run back through the leg to do it again. Like I said, I think I can survive with one stomp. Also, if you break the carapace on her tail, this also speeds it up a little bit. But really, you'll take forever if you're just attacking her tail, so I almost feel compelled to try and go for the headshot when she comes down. So it takes like 5 attacks to do the damage of one headshot. Yep. Unfortunately, breaking the carapace didn't actually increase the damage that much, but now it's... takes what, like one less hit to do the same amount of damage with that combo. You can attack the legs, but I don't recommend it. The most important thing to remember is once she leaves the ground, she won't, her landing spot is already decided, and if you don't move, she won't hit you. Since the attack is centered on you, but the center of her body doesn't actually come down to hit you. Only her legs, I think, can do any damage during a jump attack. And they'll never hit you from the spot where you stop. And the spot where you stop will also put you pretty close to her head. So go for those headshots. And then sprint through the legs before they do anything. Don't worry if you miss, just keep doing the same thing. Go for the tail. Tippy ippy tail. I hate it when she starts rotating around like that though. Watching her get staggered from the tail is actually pretty hilarious though. I'm sure a person better than me could do 2 hits on that head before running back to the legs, but at this point I was really stressed out and I'm just like, I want this to be over. I don't want to fuck this up and have to do it all over again. Almost there. I whipped out. There we go. That was more of a neck shot than a head shot, but in some ways that should do more damage, but, you know, video games. Ooh. Yep. Good shot at the inside of her head, which is empty. I think at this point I was just like, slaughter the tail! But of course the last hit always eludes you. But then we're done! Hooray! And that was the Defiled Chalice. So thanks for watching if you kept up this far, and I'll see you again in the main game. Bye for now.